Hello and welcome to another video. Today we'll be taking a look at the Women's Battalion of Death. We'll take a look at the historical context, the formation of the battalion, Maria Bokareva, take a look at the recruitment and training, as well as the battalion in combat, political and social impact, disbandment and legacy, historical significance, cultural impact, personal accounts, and key dates and events. So let's start off with the historical context. Well, imagine it's World War I. It's the year 1917. Russia is deeply involved into the World War, and it is facing an immense military and social pressure. Additionally, there was the February Revolution. The overthrow of the Tsarist regime in the March of 1917 led to the establishment of the provisional government. So, what happened? Well, there was a call for female participation. Patriotic fervor and the need for more soldiers led to calls for women's involvement into the military. The person who looks at this is Laurie Stoff in her book Battling for the Truth, the Women's Battalion of Death and the Future of Feminism. She explores the historical background leading to the battalion's formation. A quote out of this book is, "The Women's Battalion of Death emerged as a symbol of both desperation and progressive ideals amid the chaos of World War I and the Revolution." Now, let's take a look at the formation of the battalion. Well, it was initiated by Maria Bokareva. She was a peasant woman and soldier, and she proposed the creation of a women's combat unit to boost morale and demonstrate women's capabilities. The provisional government authorized the formation of the battalion in June 1917 as a part of a broader effort to revive military discipline and morale. Yashka, My Life as a Peasant, by Maria Bokareva, provides a first-hand account of her motivations and experiences. She states that, "I believed that by forming a women's battalion, we could shame the men into returning to the trenches and continuing the fight." Now let's take a closer look at Maria Bokareva. Well, she was a leading figure. Bokareva became the commanding officer, known for her strict discipline and personal bravery. Her rise from a peasant background to a military leader was unusual and inspiring for many, which underscores her determination and leadership qualities. In the book A Historical Encyclopedia from Antiquity to the Present, Volume 1 by Bernard A. Cook, he provides context on Bokareva's life and leadership. He says that Maria Bokareva's uncompromising leadership and personal valor became the cornerstone of the Women's Battalion of Death. Now let's take a look at the recruitment and training of this battalion. Well, the battalion recruited volunteers, focusing on women who were determined, disciplined, and willing to face the rigors of combat. The recruits underwent rigorous military training, including physical conditioning and weapons handling, to prepare front-line combat. A book that looks at this is a book called Russia's Women Soldiers, Testimonies of War and Freedom from the Archives, by Elena Meril, and the book explores the recruitment and training of this said battalion. A quote from her is, "The women of the battalion endured harsh training regimes to transform into soldiers capable of fighting alongside men on the front lines." The battalion in combat. Well, the battalion saw its first and only major combat action during the Kerensky offensive in July of 1917, fighting on the Eastern Front against German forces. Despite their bravery, the offensive failed and the battalion faced challenges including poor coordination and retreating male units. A book that also looks at this is called The Russian Revolution, A New History, and it was written by Sean McMeekan. It details the combat role of the battalion during the Kerensky offensive. He states that the Women's Battalion of Death fought valiantly during the Kerensky offensive, but their efforts were undermined by the broader failures of the offensive, which I believe to be completely true. Next up is the political and social impact. Well, this battalion was a symbol of patriotism. The battalion was seen as a symbol of national pride and women's capacity for sacrifice and service, but there was also quite some controversy and resistance about this battalion. Their formation and participation also sparked debate on gender roles and the appropriateness of women in combat. Someone who looks at this is Megan McKinsey. In her book The Battle for Equality, she discusses the broader social implications of women's participation in military combat. In her book, there is a quote which says the following: "The Women's Battalion of Death challenged traditional gender norms and became a powerful emblem of women's patriotism and capability." Next up is the disbandment and legacy. Well, there was a post-revolution turmoil. Following the Bolshevik Revolution in October of 1917, the battalion faced disbandment as the new regime reorganized the military. Of course, there was then the end of the battalion. The battalion was officially disbanded in early 1918, with many members returning to civilian life or joining other military units. Revolutionary Russia, 1891 to 1991, A History, by Orlando Fix, covers this topic more closely and the disbandment and aftermath of the battalion. He says that the disbandment of the Women's Battalion of Death marked the end of a brief yet symbolic experiment in female military participation. The historical significance of this battalion. Well, the battalion was one of the first all-female combat units in modern military history, setting a precedent for future female military participation. And it also had, of course, a legacy of empowerment. Their service contributed to the broader struggle for women's rights and recognition in the military. A nice quote about this is, "The Women's Battalion of Death left a legacy of courage and paved the way for future generations of women in the armed forces." Julia Wheelwright wrote this in her book Sisters in Arms, Female Warriors from Antiquity. The cultural impact. Well, of course, we have media and propaganda. The battalion received considerable attention in contemporary media, which used their story for both propaganda and inspiration. Their bravery and the novelty of an all-female combat unit inspired various literary and artistic works. Women Heroes of World War I, 16 Remarkable Resistors, Soldiers, Spies, and Medics by Catherine J. Atwood. She discusses the cultural impact and representation of female soldiers. The Women's Battalion of Death captivated the public imagination, becoming a subject of numerous artistic and literary portrayals. Second to last is Personal Accounts and Memoirs. Well, members of the battalion, including Boshkarieva herself, wrote memoirs and personal accounts providing insight into their experience and motivations. These accounts offer valuable perspectives on the challenges and achievements of the battalion. Roger D. Markwick states, "The memoirs of the woman who served in the battalion provide a poignant and personal glimpse into their groundbreaking roles as soldiers." That was written by Roger D. Marwick and Eurydice Sharon Cardona in their book Russian Women in War, Memoirs of Battle, Front and Home Front. Key dates and events. Well, of course, we have June 1917. The formation of the Women's Battalion of Death, led by Mia Bochkareva. July of 1917, the participation in the Kerensky Offensive, marking their combat debut and, well, also their end. Early 1918, disbandment of the battalion following the Bolshevik Revolution. That was all for today. Thank you for listening. Bye.